Yo, what is up, my Nakama? So my name is Daniel, and I'm a current second year medical student, and I have a pretty cool video for you guys today, so I hope you enjoy. Let's go. Now, it's been about 1 year since I took anatomy as a first year medical student, and I remember one of the most rewarding experiences was going into the cadaver lab and actually doing the dissections. And that was the best way to actually learn the anatomical relationships, by actually dissecting the cadaver and seeing, which artery travels where and what's superior and what's anterior to what. And learning all these anatomical relationships really solidifies your anatomy knowledge, and will make you a good physician, hopefully. But one of the difficult things during anatomy lab, or during anatomy as a first year medical student, was the anatomy lab practical. And what the practical was basically they would have a lot of pins and they would stick it in certain structures. And basically you'd go around the tables that had the cadavers and you'd have to identify what structure was pinned. One of the only ways to study for this was to actually go into the cadaver lab and review the possible structures that they could test you on. But it was kind of difficult to actually quiz or test yourself in any sort of way. And really the only way that I quizzed myself outside of anatomy lab was through Anki. So there was a site that I believe the University of Michigan Medical School had, and they had a bunch of pictures of like different dissections of different anatomical regions, like the shoulder, for example, or the chest cavity. And the pictures would be from actual cadavers. And so basically I would make like Anki image occlusion cards, and that's really how I would study for the lab practicals. But one thing that I wish I had, which I'm going to be discussing in this video, is more of like a question bank type of application where I could kind of quiz myself, kind of like a mock anatomy lab practical. And this is something that you can do a few days before your anatomy lab practical, as a kind of nice way to review and quiz yourself to make sure that you really know these structures that the practical is going to be about. So that brings me to the topic of today's video, which is Anatomy Bootcamp. So I'm super excited to share with you this program because the people over at Anatomy Bootcamp actually reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to try out their program and make a video about it. And this is kind of my first like medical school related sponsored video, I guess you could think of. But I'm basically going to go over Anatomy Bootcamp, how it works, what the site looks like, and how it can benefit you in terms of studying for your anatomy lab practicals. And so far for the first few days that I've tried out this program, I think it's a fantastic resource. And the cool part about all of this is that I believe that Anatomy Bootcamp will provide me with a link that I can share with you guys. And if you guys use that link, you'll have an entire year's free subscription to this site. So for all you M1s that are starting Anatomy Lab right now, this could be a potentially awesome and just free resource that you can use, since Anatomy Bootcamp kind of hooked me up with this. So I'm definitely excited to share it with you all. So what I think I'm going to do actually is I'm going to start like a screen recording of my desktop here so that you guys can kind of follow along and see how Anatomy Bootcamp actually works. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so here we have the homepage of Anatomy Bootcamp. Now the site is still in development, I believe. They haven't released their full site yet, but I believe they're going to do so sometime in early September. And I think everything will be on there, and you'll be able to buy a subscription actually if you want to, but using my link, as I mentioned before, you can just get access to this whole site for free for an entire year, which is amazing. Thank you, people over at Anatomy Bootcamp. But basically, as you can see, the main part of the website is right here where the classrooms are. And the classrooms are divided into the major anatomical regions. So like, for example, here we have the upper and lower limbs as well as the back. And here we have the thorax, abdomen, and pelvis, which is still coming soon. It's not released yet. And here we have head and neck. And they'll probably have the rest of the anatomical regions. Well, actually, this pretty much covers all of the anatomical regions to some extent. But they'll, as you can see, as I'll show you, if you click inside one of these major regions, it is then further subdivided into different chapters, and each of the chapters contains a more specific and detailed part of the region you're looking at, because obviously the entire upper limb can be divided into the hand, the forearm, the arm, the deltoid, the pectoralis major and minor, the chest cavity, as well as the back. But yeah, so here, as you can see, we have different chapters. We have the hand, the forearm, and cubital fossa, anterior arm, axilla, scapular region, and posterior arm, and the pectoral region. So basically, I guess I'm just going to kind of go with you what this kind of looks like. So you can think of Anatomy Bootcamp as basically like a question bank that is just about gross anatomy lab. So if we click here on pectoral region, let's do this quiz again together. So the quizzes are divided into like different cases that have like 10 to 15 questions usually per each case. So if we click this case right here, this is case 1.1 from the pectoral region. So let's just go ahead and retake the quiz. I took it a while ago, so we'll see how well I remember these things. Okay, so as you can see, this is the layout of the website and what the quizzes look like. So we have a picture, a gross anatomy lab picture of a dissection, a very good dissection too, by the way. You know, a lot of people's cadavers, when they dissect them, they don't look as clean and well defined as this. But anyways, so they have an arrow here and you just answer what it is. So I believe this is the deltoid. I think that's pretty obvious. And the cool thing about all this is that this is the actual cadaver. It's not like some cartoon image or depiction of a cadaver. It's the actual cadaver itself, which is what you're gonna see in the lab practical. So something that I kind of had trouble with a lot was if you are in med school, you might use something called like Netter, I think is his name. He's like an artist and he does a lot of cartoon and like drawing depictions of cadavers. And while it is good to get like kind of a baseline foundation by looking at those artistic depictions, obviously you can't substitute for actually looking at the cadaver and seeing what the structure will look like in real life. So that's why I think resources like this can be really useful for studying for your anatomy lab practicals. So okay, we answered deltoid. Let's go to next. That is pointing to the vein right there, and I believe that's the cephalic vein. I believe that's where it courses. We'll see. It's been a year since I've taken this type of gross anatomy, but hopefully I remember this stuff. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's the pectoralis major. That seems pretty obvious. Under it, I believe, is the pectoralis minor, but it hasn't been reflected this way. It's just the superficial layer, which should be the pectoralis major. Next. All right, I think that's pointing to the deltoid again. But as you can see, you know, there's so many compartments to the arm, and each of the chapters was subdivided into the different compartments, and the hand itself is just the whole beast. I mean, like, there's so many different little joints. There's actually a mnemonic. Let's see if I can remember it. There's a mnemonic to remember the kind of the small bones that make up your wrist and your hand. I believe it's so long to pinky, here comes the thumb. Yeah, that was the mnemonic. Do I remember what those acronyms stand for? Scaphoid, lunate, we'll just move on. Okay, so deltoid, next. I think that's still pointing to the cephalic vein. Okay, next. That, let's see, do I remember? I believe that is a nerve. I think it might be the intercostal nerve. Cutaneous branch? Yeah, maybe. See, this is a good way to test yourself. I mean, I think that's the intercostal nerve because it looks like it's in the intercostal area, but once I finish this quiz, if I get it wrong, I'll be able to learn from it. And there's actually a cool thing that this site does, which I'll show once I complete this quiz. But anyways, let's continue. I believe that is the serratus anterior. Next. That is the pectoralis major reflected. So sometimes in anatomy lab or during the practical, there will be anatomical structures that are reflected, meaning like they're cut on the midline and then like you bring them open in order to see like the underside or something. So it's actually a good thing to look out for because you might get confused if certain things are reflected. You might think you're looking at what's underneath the reflected object when it's actually just the reflected thing itself. So make sure when you're in your lab practical, quick tip is to really just get your foundations, know where you are in the body, and really make sure you see which anatomical structure the pin is going through, because they'll try and trip you up like that, which is an evil thing to do. Okay, next, that I believe, what is that right there? I think that's the thoracoacromial trunk. Okay, next. That is I believe that's the medial pectoral nerve, because it looks like it's supplying the pectoralis minor, and I think that's what the medial pectoral nerve supplies the pectoralis minor. We'll see. All right, and then last, I believe that's pointing to the actual pectoralis minor muscle, which is underneath your pec major, if you didn't know that. Okay, and then submit. All right, submit now. Let's see how we did. 11 out of 11. Let's go. So the first time I took this quiz, I actually got a 10 out of 11. So I must have answered something correctly now. Dang, I really know my pectoral region anatomy. Okay, so now let's begin the review. So this is probably the most important thing to do in any situation, but especially with anatomy boot camp. So as you can see, you go through your quiz and it tells you if you got something right or wrong, but obviously I got everything right during this quiz. But if you are unsure about something or you want to see it again, these things are really nice here. So here we have learning, reviewing, and mastered. And this is kind of like Anki if you recognize it. Basically, if you click learning, I think what that means is that like if you can kind of isolate those questions that you're learning that you're having difficulty with, and I think you can do a quiz of the things that you're learning in order to see them again if you're having difficulty with them. Reviewing is kind of like in between learning and mastered, and then mastered is like you have it down, like you don't need to see this again. If you see it on your exam, you're gonna totally get it 100% of the time. And another cool thing is that they have these little videos here, which are kind of like explanations of the different like parts in this anatomical region. They also have like a PDF version of this video, and you can look at the PDF and like look at how they explain how to distinguish certain things and what you missed and why you missed it. So let's just say we mastered it. So pectoralis major, that was pretty easy. We mastered it. Deltoid, that was also pretty easy to see that's obviously the deltoid mastered. So let's say even though we got this right here, which was the cephalic vein, we still had a little bit of difficulty understanding that that's the cephalic vein. So we can say reviewing, and now up here you'll see that for this question, we're still reviewing that question. We still want to see the cephalic vein one more time and learn how it courses through the body. This one was, well, it was an educated guess, but we still got it right. It looks like it's an intercostal nerve, and it indeed was an intercostal nerve, but let's say, we're just learning that one because we didn't know it for sure. Serratus anterior, we're pretty sure about that. It's pretty easy to identify anatomically. Your serratus anterior right here, by the way. Pectoralis major reflected, that was pretty easy. Medial pectoral nerve, well, we understood it was the medial pectoral nerve because we know that is what innervates the pectoralis minor, but we're still going to hit reviewing, because we just want to see that again. We didn't feel completely confident about that. I'm saying we, but I mean I. And pectoralis minor, that was pretty easy to identify, so we'll just hit mastered for that. And now we complete our review. So now, as you can see, we see kind of what we've mastered, what we're reviewing, and what we're still learning within this one case. And I think that's pretty cool. Like that's a cool way to keep track of what you've mastered and what you've learned. And it's a good way to kind of see what you still need to review. And let's say, for example, you notice like the cephalic vein, as I mentioned before, that's something that you don't really know too well. So if you identify that problem on here, what you should do is go into the actual anatomy lab and review that structure with your cadaver and with other people's cadavers until you've mastered it. And then if you have a really solid grasp of the cephalic vein when you go to anatomy lab, then when you redo this quiz, at night or a few days before your actual anatomy lab practical, you're just gonna kill it. I think this is a great way to supplement your cadaver dissections if you're a medical student. Yeah, this is an awesome resource. It's definitely something I would have totally used if I was still in anatomy and trying to prepare for my test. So I think let's go ahead and do one that I haven't done before. So let's click 1.2 here just for giggles. We'll see how I do. All right, begin attempt. All right, identify the tag structure. Well, this is probably the pectoralis major that's reflected. So I'm going to click pectoralis major. All right, this right here, that could be the lateral pectoral nerve because it's innervating. I believe the lateral pectoral nerve innervates both the pectoralis minor and major. I might be wrong about that if I don't remember correctly, but I'm just going to click lateral pectoral nerve. All right, this right here, oh wait, maybe that's the lateral pectoral nerve. Ooh, do I remember my anatomy well? All right, I'm gonna click the lateral pectoral nerve and either take the L twice or take the dub once. Next. That right there, okay, I should remember. So as you can see, it's pretty obvious the anatomical relationship of this vein. It's coursing underneath the pec minor. Do I remember what that vein is? Oh, I feel so dumb right now. Is it the cephalic vein? Oh God, basic anatomy right here. I'm gonna guess axillary vein. I might be totally wrong. See, it's a good thing. This is good review. Okay, this right here, I believe is the long thoracic nerve. And then this right here is it looks like it's one of the intercostal nerves. Next. This right here, is that the serratus anterior? Yeah, I think that is serratus anterior. Submit. Wait, looks like some questions haven't been answered. Go back. Did I not answer? Next. Huh. Oh, I skipped through 3. Okay. This is the pec minor. Yes, okay. 8 out of 8 answered. Okay, so lateral pectoral nerve, hopefully. Axillary vein, we'll see. I might be totally wrong. Long thoracic nerve, intercostal, serratus anterior. Okay, let's submit and see how we did. Oh, 7 out of 8. Oh my God. Okay, let's review. So pectoralis major, we knew that. It was pretty easy, and we've done it in the previous case too, so this is kind of just reinforcing it. Mastered. Pectoralis minor, that was easy. We definitely mastered that. Oh, that is the medial. Okay, so I think I was confusing things. The medial pectoral nerve, I believe, innervates, or at least courses through both the pec minor and major. And maybe the lateral pectoral nerve only gets the pec major. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so we're still learning that. We had the right idea, we were trying to reason it through, but this is just something that we need to reinforce. And this is a great way to reinforce it, of course, so we'll just hit learning. Oh, we were right, the axillary vein. So yeah, I guess this is an important anatomical relationship here, the axillary vein and how it courses like inferior to the pec minor. And when you're in anatomy lab, when you're in your cadaver lab, you'll actually see this happening, and it's great to see this in person, but seeing an image here will reinforce that too. So if you see a pin, tagged in this vein, and you see it's coursing underneath the pec minor, then doing this quiz as well as practicing during the cadaver lab will really reinforce that relationship so that you get that right during the actual lab practical. But because we weren't completely sure about that, we're just going to hit reviewing. The long thoracic nerve, we were pretty confident about that, so I'll hit mastered. That's kind of obviously a cutaneous branch of an intercostal nerve, mastered. We're pretty good about that. I think we know that that's the serratus anterior if we would see it. Complete review. Okay, so now this is what it looks like. So as you can see, if you continue and answer all of these questions, you will get this completely filled, all 44 questions filled. And then you can go back and review the ones that were yellow or red until hopefully all 44 questions are mastered and have a green tag, and then you should be ready for your anatomy lab practical. So let's quickly, just before I finish up this video, let's click PDF outline. So this is the PDF outline of the pectoral review. And as you can see, they kind of have the major muscles here, the arteries you should probably know, the major veins, and the major nerves. And these images, so these are the images that I was talking about before that are like artistic depictions of the cadaver, but they aren't the actual cadaver. So an actual cadaver, it doesn't look as neat and well defined as this. And there aren't letters written over the muscles that tell you what muscle is what, of course. So that's why I like Anatomy Bootcamp, because it gives you images that you can quiz yourself off of that are from the actual cadaver. But these are kind of good review just so you get a baseline kind of information of how things should be coursing through the body. Oh, I remember this right here. This right here is the brachial plexus. But once you get it down, it's not too bad. It just looks like a mess initially, especially in the body. But once you know C5 through T1, and then you divide between your roots, trunks, divisions, and cords, and you have your musculocutaneous, your axillary median nerve, ulnar, radial. It's all coming back to me. But yeah, this is just a quick PDF that you can review and then go back to quiz yourself once you've done a proper review with this or through any other sort of resource. But yeah, that is pretty much it. That is Anatomy Bootcamp. I think this is a fantastic resource to use if you're a first-year medical student and you want to quiz yourself with a QBank type resource for anatomy lab. This is something I definitely wish I had when I was a first-year medical student, and I'm so glad that they reached out to me, because this is like something that I can actually provide with you guys, my subscribers, that I think can legitimately help you if you are medical students, or if you're just looking to learn anatomy and you're not necessarily a medical student. I think this can still be really useful if for some reason you have to go into a cadaver lab or do dissections of any sorts. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to use the link below that will give you an entire year for free of this program. And as always, date bayo. Oh wait, and best of luck on your first anatomy lab practical. Okay, now date bayo.